project started around the idea of the new violin concerto by Deborah Pritchard called Wall of Water, and that musical concept evolved out of the paintings of Maggie Hambling, also called Wall of Water.
The composer Deborah Pritchard and I came up with this idea. We wanted to do something combining art and music. We discussed what artists particularly inspired us, and we loved the work of Maggie Hambling.
They were inspired by alarmingly, marvellously, splendidly, terrifyingly, beautifully, unnervingly high waves crashing onto the seawall.
Even though these paintings are of these huge, great, majestic waves crashing against the wall, there's also something about humanity in them as well. There's a feeling that there's a voice that's speaking too.
They're very strong images, very strong colours. It's as if she's almost thrown the paint at the canvas.
Deborah's done it in a very rich and imaginative way. There's a sort of oneness between what Deborah sees as the color on the painting and what she hears as the color of the harmony.
You can't just have a wall of music. It would be, for 20-minute concerto, I don't think it would be very effective. So we wanted to go through almost like a process of how Maggie was painting, you know, a journey.
Deborah was certainly encouraged to work with the chronological order of the paintings.
I like writing long lines that develop. I'm very fluid. I'm quite a modal composer in how I write. I like telling a story in my music. I like exploring different textures, different colours. So there was something in Maggie's art that I resonated with.
It begins and ends with the same music. It begins and ends in darkness. And I know that Deborah dedicated the piece to the memory of her father, who's recently deceased too. So I find the ending of the piece incredibly moving. This return to blackness and stillness is amazingly powerful and amazingly rich. The ESO has always had two identities, a string orchestra and symphony orchestra, and this is a string orchestra project. It was founded as a string orchestra, so it's a very important part of our heritage, and this is a very important project for us. It's the first new work that we've had created for the orchestra since we all started working together. I personally believe that commissions and premieres are the legacy of an orchestra. It's the thing that we contribute to the future, much more than the individual concerts. And I think the roots of this orchestra as a string orchestra mean that we were looking particularly for music that has a sort of lyricism and a vocal quality that speaks to great string playing. We wanted to put this new piece in a really interesting context, and there were a few happy accidents that brought the pieces together. I had conducted this beautiful, beautiful piece by Emily Doolittle several years ago called Falling Still, which is for the exact same instrumentation. And like Deborah's piece, it has a connection with nature.
For the first time, I heard a European blackbird singing in the middle of the night. And at the same time, it was raining and gently windy. And so there was this beautiful contrast between the bird song and the falling of the rain and the wind. And what really interested me about this was both the bird and the rain sounds were beautiful, but the bird is a living being, sort of choosing the sounds that it sings, whereas the rain sound, which is also beautiful, is just sort of the result of a physical process. There's nobody choosing the sounds that it makes.
It's much more intimate. It's very slow. It's kind of suspended. and it was a wonderful contrast to play it with the Wall of Water Concerto. The notes were so meaningful. They have a sense of improvisation, but each one is just incredibly important. In
her piece, you have the very expressive, extemporaneous sounding solo violin. It's all very carefully notated, but it's written out in such a way as to sound very free and improvised, as if a bird was playing it. And then the very simple and straightforward, all vertically written music of the strings, which is sort of like the rain. It's not intended to sound in any way like rain, but this idea of two sounds motivated in different ways that create a beauty between them. As I was sort of building that around it, I thought, we've got this big piece about water. It'd be nice to do something with earth. And I had encountered this wonderful string quartet by Kaija Saariaho several years ago called Terra, Memoria. And I sort of vaguely remembered that there might be a string orchestra version. I looked it up, and sure enough, there was. So Terra Memoria literally is translated as earth and memory, or sacred ground. And she says that the piece is dedicated to the memory of those who are no longer with us. And so it's a cyclic piece, sort of from dust to dust, as opposed to from the sea and back to the sea. And it's also, like the Doolittle, essentially a nocturnal piece. The whole work exists in a very explicitly nocturnal world, whereas Maggie's work, because of the light on the sea, is implicitly as an element of daylight in it. And so I think having those as the two pieces at opposite ends of the program fits very nicely. We wanted to make a statement about the future of the orchestra, about commissioning, about new music, and about new music that we believe our audience is going to love. Of course, people come because they want to hear the pieces that they know and love, but we want them to leave every one of our concerts, hopefully, with something new added to their list of things that they love. And I think all of these pieces have a chance to fit in that category.